Well, today we're going to get the BakFlip MX4 cover for the back of my 2016 F350. We're going to get it opened up, get it installed in the back of the truck. We are ready to start installing the BakFlip MX4. I have all the stuff laid out that we need to install the BakFlip. So we have the BakFlip sitting over here. It's on the protective cover that it came in. We have the left and right side rails. We have the drain tubes, 6 clamps, 3 for each side. This weather stripping is for the front edge of the truck right up here behind the cab. We have some protective bumpers. The clip hardware, which is utilized to keep the BakFlip secured when it's folded up in its folded up position. The thumb screws, which are used to secure the BakFlip to the truck itself. And then I have the tools necessary to install the BakFlip. I have an inch-pounds torque wrench because I need to be able to torque to 10 foot-pounds, so 120 inch-pounds in this case. We have a 14 mm combination wrench, 14 mm socket, deep socket. I also have a 14 mm on my impact gun, but I don't believe we'll need that, but I have it just in case. I have a Phillips screwdriver. We also have isopropyl alcohol in order to clean all of the surfaces where we will be installing weather stripping. Any surface that won't be accessible once the tracks are installed, I'm going to go ahead and wipe all those down and let that dry to make sure we don't have any dirt or debris caught in an area that could cause us problems down the road. We have both sets of instructions. When I say both sets, I specifically mean the primary set and the supplemental sheet. This supplemental sheet is very important. We're going to go through all the normal steps through the whole installation, but in most cases, majority of trucks need to have this supplemental sheet. And this is very important because on the back of this sheet, there's a list of all the vehicles that you could install this type of BakFlip on. So you have the Chevy, GMC, Cadillac, Dodge, Ram, Ford, Honda, Nissan, and Toyota. And it gives you a chart to know if you need shims or tapered spacers. And in my specific case for my 2016 F350, I don't need either. So I was able to come down the chart to Ford, 2016 Super Duty, come across it says no for the angled shim, and then it says no for the spacer. So I lucked out there. If I had a bed liner, installed a plastic drop-in bed liner, this table could come in handy for something that may guide us down that road. However, in my case, I have a spray-in liner. And on my truck, I have the plastic rail caps installed, which this is specifically designed to fit into those plastic rail caps without any spacers or shims. The plastic rail caps actually make up that gap that you would have for the spacer or shim. With all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get the rails set up on the truck and all the hardware up in place. And we're going to start out with step number 1, which is actually cleaning of all the surfaces. While I'm getting my gloves on here, I'd like to point out that I took my truck and I pressure washed the interior of the bed out. The area behind the cab, all the walls, the floor. I got all of the dirt and debris out of here. So the last little bit of cleaning we need to do is the area where the sealing surface for the weather strip will be. And I'm going to go ahead and clean off the edge of the plastic cap that won't be accessible once we've installed the rails. I'm going to install this weather stripping along the front edge of this area. It's time to get the first bed rail installed. So we've cleaned the surface, we've got the bed rail in place. The bed rails are kind of specific in that they need to be left and right side. There is a silver tab that's aluminum up here, and this silver tab needs to go towards the cab and point it in towards the bed of the truck. Once you've determined that you've got it going in the right direction, You need to get it in place, and very carefully, there's a little rolled seal here. You want to push that down against the top of the, in my case, plastic bed. So I'm going to set it up there and pull it and drag it forward in order to get the flap to be where I want it. And then I'm going to slide it forward until it is contacted against the front of the cab as hard as it will go. We're going to take our first clamp and we're going to place it about 6 inches back from the front edge of the rail closest to the cab. It's very important that you get, there's little grooves on the clamps and they correspond to grooves on the rail. You need to make sure those grooves line up with the rail and seat correctly so that you don't have a misalignment issue. So we have our first clamp in place and we're going to work from the front to the back. So we'll put another one right in the middle. I am pushing the rail out against the edge of the bed and down when I'm tightening these up, and I'm very loosely snugging them up right now because I don't want to over tighten them. The second set of hands would be massively beneficial in this specific instance, so much so that I think I'm going to grab a quick clamp and use it to hold this in place. Okay, there's our second clamp. Let's move to the back. So we are going to put it about 6 inches forward of the back of the rail, so right about here. We're going to make sure that the upper seal is positioned correctly on the track, which it is. I'm going to go ahead and put my quick clamp in place. So I'm going to push this down and out and then snug this up just slightly. Loosen up the nut. Making sure that these grooves, you see the grooves here, correspond to the grooves on the track, which are underneath it here. And you're going to go up and in and engage those grooves. And you can feel them engage. And then we're going to snug them up ever so slightly. There we go. So we're going to grab our torque wrench and set it to 120 inch-pounds, which is 10 foot-pounds. Right there. Lock it down. Put our socket on there, and we're going to check to make sure that we're not too crazy high on all these. Right there. And there. So now I've torqued all 3 of the clamps for the rail. We're going to go ahead and repeat the exact same process on the other side. Now we have the other rail torqued. Ready to move on to the next step. So before we install the cover onto the truck, we actually need to install these little clips. So these are the clips that allow the straps to keep the BakFlip cover in place when it's opened. So we need to get this thing positioned in such a way that we can get these installed. So located on the side, you have these 2 holes. This is the hole for the primary fastener. So these 2 holes are for the clip. So this clip here has a rubber gasket on the bottom, and it gets positioned over those 2 holes. In the bag with the clip, there are 4 screws and 4 threaded inserts. So this threaded insert goes into the bottom. So it gets pushed into the bottom here, along with another one. So I did notice just now that a bunch of aluminum from the factory, when they drilled these holes, the aluminum has clogged up the hole completely. There's no way I would be able to get a fastener into that hole currently. Which means I need to push out the insert and get the aluminum out of the hole. It's going to be difficult to see. So these large chunks of aluminum were inside of that hole. Had I tried to put that together without noticing this, we could have had a massive problem and damaged the cover or at minimum the hardware. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all the holes out before installing any of the hardware. So more metal chips, you can see them sitting all throughout my deck here. Came out of those two holes. So now we'll put the metal inserts in, or the screw inserts in. With those in place, we can set the cleaned clamp onto the BakFlip and the two screws. You could very easily damage or crush this metal track if you were to use anything but a normal screwdriver. I'm just holding the back side. I'm holding the insert to make sure that it doesn't spin. That's all there is to it. All right, it's time to get this installed for the very first time. So I'm going to make sure to pick it up in such a way that the little skinny flap edge is towards the cab when I walk around that direction. I mean, it's light enough to where one person can do it, but it's definitely awkwardly heavy. Well, it looks like it clicked in place. Kind of before I wanted it to, actually. And it needs to go forward just slightly. So we're going to grab the track, a little release mechanism, pop that loose. We need to make sure that we're as forward and as lined up as we can be, and that the seal is where it belongs, and it appears that it is. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this thing back to make sure that when it's unfolded, it lines up with the tailgate. So it looks like it's lining up really nicely. So now that we've determined that it's in the right place, we need to flip it back forward and actually install the mounting hardware in the front end. Our mounting hardware. So we have this large pre-done bolt. So this gets a rubber washer here. So this, just in this configuration with that rubber washer, will drop down through the hole. There's a pre-done sealing membrane that's adhered to the back side of this. You have to push through that. On the other side, we're going to go ahead and install a rubber washer first, then the large flat washer, then the lock washer, so in that order there, and then the 5-lug thumb screw, which will secure this fastener and secure it to the frame rail that we installed. It was this rubberized membrane. This is some sort of rubber that was stuck to the underside of this, but I thought I was able to push through it and I wasn't. I'm gonna actually have to go puncture a hole through this and do the same thing on the one over there before we're able to put the fastener through. So I'm just gonna take a razor blade and puncture an X. So now that I've fixed those, I'm gonna go ahead and set this back in place. And now I can get to the fastener. So we'll do the rubber washer, the large flat washer, the locking washer, and the thumb screw. All right. Before we get too far along, I'm going to close it up and make sure it lines up. Okay. Seems like it's lining up pretty well. Now that we've got the cover where it belongs, we're going to go ahead and get these straps adjusted. So we just click it in and snug it up so that you're able to quickly put it in place when you need it to be. And they provide you this little storage location right back here when you're not using that strap. I want to get the rubber bumpers that go on the back of the BakFlip to protect the cab of my truck installed. 3 rubber bumpers come with the BakFlip, and we're gonna bring up the BakFlip and see where it's gonna hit at. I have a window in the middle, so putting one in the middle isn't gonna do us any good. So we're gonna put one here, about 3 inches in from the side. So this stuff's super sticky, so you wanna make sure that it is where you want it before you put it on. In my case, I have this window here. And because that window was recessed, putting one of these bumpers right in the middle won't do any good. So I'm going to cut this bumper in half and put one half on each side of the window to where it contacts either side of that recessed part. When it contacts, you can see here that it does not hit any solid surface. One of the last things we need to take care of is getting the drain tubes installed. So it comes with 2 drain tubes, one for the left and one for the right side. Those drain tubes go into, on the upper edge corner, there's a little piece of pipe, I'll call it, sticking down on each side. And the drain tube goes up over the top of that thing and then routed down through the hole in one of the sides here. Over on this side, just behind this thumb screw, there's a little tiny pipe. You can see it sticking down right here. That little pipe is going to get the drain tube. And in my case, the drain tube is going to get routed right into this hole. And this hole goes down inside of the wall of the truck into the ground. So I've had to go ahead and pop off this cap, move it out of the way, put this through here. It goes through that hole, through the square hole on the other side. I'll use my knife through that top hole to direct the hose down where it belongs. Now that it's going where I want it to, I can reinstall the cap and push the tube up onto the drain line. So you can see here, drain line comes down and the water will go out and down. On these side rails, there are 2 little metal struts. You take them loose, place them at the bottom of this track, loosen the thumb screw, push the track down nice and securely, and tighten up the thumb screw. Now you can do this from out of the bed, but you want to make sure that thing's nice and snug. And then when you install the one on the other side, it prevents the BakFlip from coming back down as you're going down the road. Pull the metal strut, bring it down in place, nice and secure. And those 2 struts stop the BakFlip from coming back down. Well, this is going to wrap up the install video for the BakFlip MX4 on my 2016 F350. Install went really well, really happy with the way that it looks. Really looking forward to getting to use this thing, and it's really going to work out well, I believe, when we go use this up in Alaska when we go on our camping trip. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Very straightforward. I definitely give this like a 1 out of 5 stars for installation difficultness. This is very, very easy. Would highly recommend anybody do this. I will tell you that I did check at a local installation place for truck canopies and tonneau covers, and they charged $110 to install this. It might be worth it for some folks, but to be perfectly honest, I suspect with very little help, and even if you were doing this outside in your driveway, you could get this done in probably an hour, hour and a half at most. It may be handy to have a second person with you, but the reality is you could do this with a 14mm socket, ratchet, and a Phillips screwdriver. You don't need a clamp. You don't need a torque wrench. Although I will tell you the instructions say to torque things to 10 foot-pounds. You can get by without that stuff in it. Overall, looks good. Install was very easy, and it's going to increase the functionality of my truck. So this installation went really, really well, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this one. Definitely check out some of those other links on the screen here. I will have the garage series, other modifications to the truck I've made. Hit that subscribe button. It always helps me out in the long run. But until next time, thanks for watching.